I got a question on YouTube, uh, somewhere in one of my other videos, and they were asking how long does it take to buy a business with no money down? But I think a better question would be how long does it take to buy a business? And I think once we answer how long it takes to buy a business, then we can get to how long it takes to buy a business with no money down, right? Um, and so when buying a business, one of the first things that I want to say is you don't want to rush in buying a business. So if your focus is on, okay, I want to buy a business, I'm not even going to touch on with no money down, but I want to buy a business in a week, then I would caution you. I would highly caution you because buying a business is not as simple as buying real estate. I mean, it can be, but there's a lot more moving parts in buying a business in than there are with real estate because you're dealing with people, right? With real estate, there's value intrinsic within the property, but with the business, buying a business, the value is based on people, systems, and services, right? And so I'll talk you through my timeline with buying a business, and then I'll add on at the end the complexity of trying to do it with no money down. So um, my typical timeline in buying a business, it'll start with initial interest, right? So whether I found that business off market, via letters, mailers, emails, or actually cold calling the business, so it starts initially with that, right? And so initial interest, and then normally there's an NDA that's being signed. So either the seller is providing me with an NDA, or there's a broker that's providing an NDA. So then we'll sign that NDA, right? And that NDA, that you can do that the same day, right? And so after an NDA is signed, what I typically do is I'll ask the seller to provide financials, like there's some sort of data exchange. So they'll either provide financials direct, or they'll provide you with some sort of confidential memorandum, a CIM that has like the financials. It has like a summary of the business, the owners, why they started it, and that sort of thing, right? So you get that, you get the financials, and then what I'll do once I get those financials, and that could take anywhere from the same day to a week or a month, right? Depending on if the business owner has their ducks in a row, like because or the timing of the year, right? So you could be buying, if you're buying a business in December, they may not have their end of year, their end of year financials ready, right? So it may take them a couple of weeks for their CPA to get that data together, right? But if they have it all, let's just say they have it all together, it could be the same day, or it could be a couple of days, right? So then you get that data. Once you get that financial data, then what you want to do is you want to underwrite the business or evaluate the business, right? So I have underwriting software. This is really just a spreadsheet, fancy spreadsheet that I have, and where I'll run the numbers, the P&Ls of that business through it, and it kind of shows me, what the business is worth, and how much I should pay for it, and then how much, if I'm negotiating for seller financing, how much I should negotiate that for, right? So that underwriting process may take me a night, right? It may take me one day, it may take me a couple hours. I could do it the same day, or I may, depending on how long I put that off, right? So there's some timeline right there. So once I figure that out, then I'll put together a term sheet, and the term sheet will typically take. Actually, while I'm underwriting the business, my software automatically my spreadsheet automatically creates a term sheet, like it just plugs those numbers in. And so once I have the term sheet, what I like to do is I'll send the seller an email with the term sheet attached, and I'll say, is this worth submitting a formal offer? And so they'll look at the numbers and be like, yeah, that might be in ballpark, right? And so if it is, then I'll draft a LOI for them for their business. And LOI is just a letter of intent, just saying that I am making the intention of actually buying that business, right? And so LOI, mine's are kind of long. because I have a lot of the contingencies that are in my purchase agreement in it. And the reason why I do that is so that when they see the purchase agreement, they won't, they'll be familiar with some of the terminology that's in there. And so, and then I also have like a little, letter saying, a little blurb in there saying, I'm so excited about the business X, Y, Z, and thank you for wanting to sell your business. So then you have your LOI period, and then so I draft that up. That may take me an afternoon or something like that, or it could take me as short as an hour or so, depending on the type of business, size of the business. And then so I send the LOI over, and then I'm waiting on a response from them, right? So if they are hot to trot, then maybe they sign it, and the next day, the next day is signed, and we're moving straight into due diligence. But if not, sometimes it may take them a week, it may take them a weekend, so there's time of me hearing back from them on LOI. Once I have a signed letter of intent, the next step is due diligence. And this is the reason why in the beginning of the video I said that you don't want to rush in buying a business. You just don't, right? You don't want to rush. You don't want to buy a business, the same day that you find it, because or the same week or whatever. Like, you want to take time, because during the due diligence period, that's where you find out really, like, the nitty gritty, like what's going on in that business, like that's where you find out like what's going on, right? Because like what I'll do during due diligence, I'll get bank statements. I'll request bank statements. I'll request the POS system, right? They may have only provided me the last 2 years of tax returns. Now I'm asking for the last 5 years, right? I'm asking for accounts receivables, AR. I'm asking for AP, account payables. I'm asking for debt. I'm getting my attorney to look up to see if there's any lawsuits that the business may be handling at that moment, right? So there's a lot of stuff that goes on within that due diligence period. Due diligence, I'll do a site visit and go and see, the equipment, if there's equipment or assets involved, right? I bring my CPA with me, and she'll do a deep dive, right? Forensic accounting type stuff with the financials of the business, right? And so that takes time. And you want you want that to take time, because you don't want to buy a dud, and you don't want to buy a business that's involved in lawsuits, right? So you want to take your time with that, right? With the due diligence period of actually buying a business, right? So after due diligence period, if and there's a number of other things that you do, and I'll probably do another video later on due diligence and all the things that you should be looking for. I'll probably do another video on that. But after that, then you finally get to the purchase agreements. If there's real estate, you do a purchase agreement for that one. For the business, you do one for that. I don't like asset sales personally, just because you lose a lot of the value in that business, and you get treated by vendors as a startup. I like to do stock sales or asset sales, or unit sales if it's an LLC, right? So I'll do a purchase agreement for the shares, and we'll actually go to Secretary of State. We'll do an update on the books and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's like the life cycle of, and then you actually close. So that's the life cycle of like buying a business, right? Now you want to add in the element of buying a business with no money down. So what does it mean when someone says buying a business with no money down? Like, a lot of times when people say that, there is a monetary exchange in that transaction, right? Like, maybe they use an SBA loan, and they got some investors, or they got their dad or a friend or someone to put up the money for the down payment, the 10 or 15% for the down payment. Or, someone would say, oh, I bought this business, no money down. And really what they did was they went and got a vendor loan, because the business had a significant amount of inventory. So they went and got a vendor loan for the inventory, and then they took that money and gave that to the seller in exchange for the business, right? Or they said no money down, and really they just went out and got a bunch of investors to come out to help them actually buy that business. So, when someone says when someone is buying a business with no money down, right? Like, um, normally there is some sort of exchange of money in that transaction, right? It just is not that person's money, right? Another way that some people may say they're buying a business with no money down is they're talking about seller financing, right? And so I did a video on TikTok about seller financing and how some people they'll go to a seller and say, "Hey, Mr. Seller, can I get seller financing?" And the person, in the video, I'm like, I just laugh like, seller financing. No, I'm not giving you seller financing, right? The key to getting seller financing is you have to build rapport with the seller. You have to build a relationship with them, right? In many cases, they've spent more time with that business than they have their own flesh and blood, right? So why would they just give a person that they don't like, they don't trust, and they can't see running their business, seller financing, right? A lot of people they look at they look at buying a business transactionally, like just transactional, like, hey, is your business? I want to buy it. Or they look at it like how people look at buying a car, used car, where you're kicking the tires and you're looking for issue, popping the hood and saying, oh, there's a hole right there, or this seat right here is messed up, so that way you can get a discount on price, right? So people will try to bring that same mindset into buying a business, but you can't, right? And if you do, you're going to insult the seller, and they're not going to want to give you seller financing, right? So if you want seller financing, that's something on top of the entire life cycle of closing a business. There's time within there where you need to build a relationship with that seller, and normally that relationship building process is happening from first contact, right? Like my first conversation with the seller, I'm not talking numbers with them, right? Even if they have a listed asking price for the business, like I'm my first conversation, I'm with them. I'm looking for information. Like, I'm just trying to find out, why are they selling? Like, why are they selling the business in the first place? What's their motivation, right? Because if I understand your motivation, now I know how to target the rest of the conversation with them, right? Because again, these are people, right? People don't want to sell their business to somebody that doesn't care about them, right? And doesn't care about their motivation for selling in the first place. Everybody, a lot of times, everybody's just thinking about themselves. And really, everyone is thinking about themselves. And you need to understand that when you're talking to the seller, they're looking at how this transaction is going to help them move on, how this transaction is going to help them spend more time with their kids, how this transaction is going to help them retire, right? And so, this is a huge decision that they're making. And if you're trying to negotiate for seller financing, it's going to take time, right? Now, I've done deals where I've negotiated seller financing, and from start to finish, it took us 3 weeks, because it was a smaller business. It was a very simple business, and so I was able to do that, right? And actually, the deal that I'm thinking about, there was a broker involved, and what I did was I invited the broker and the seller to my place of business, so they could see, that I'm a real player, and I have the ability to actually manage a business. And so, what that helped with was my credibility. It made me a more credible buyer in his eyes, and he was more willing to will and deal. And there's other cases where you may find a business, if you're you may find a business that would be considered distress. Like, maybe they're closing their doors, within a week of you talking to them. In that case, right, and you're getting the business, they're about to shut it down anyway. Yeah, I mean, you could buy that business in a day, right? You just sign a contract, and I got some contracts where someone just signed it over real quick in a day, right? There's no due diligence. You're getting it. They're about to shut it down, and you guys figure out something, and you get it. Or so there are ways. There are scenarios where you can get a business fast. But the question that I would ask is, why would you want to get a business fast, right? You want to take time to get to know the business owner, and you want to take time to get to know that business, so that way you know what you're getting yourself into. because one thing that a lot of people in this space of small business M&A, and I've seen there's a lot of gurus and people out here, selling courses and stuff on buying and selling businesses. Everyone talks about the good things. Like everyone talks about the highlights of buying a business, but you don't really hear too many people talk about the dark side of buying a business. And so the dark side is where you deal with lawsuit, where you deal with debt. Like even seller financing. Seller financing is a loan. And so if you don't pay it back, like if the business fails, you still owe that money, right? And a lot of times that it's secured by some sort of asset in the business, or a personal guarantee. Now, I would suggest you don't sign a personal guarantee. I would suggest that you structure your acquisition where you kind of limit that liability to yourself. But in some cases, you got to sign a personal guarantee. And so, seller financing, it's a loan, and in some cases, if you have to do that, then you got to do it. I don't do that, anyone that comes to me and wants me to do that, I'll just walk away from the deal. But in some cases, people do it, right? If you do an SBA loan, you're going to sign a personal guarantee. But I think I'm kind of getting off into the weeds, and this video is kind of getting kind of long. Long story short, how long does it take to buy a business with no money down? It varies. It varies on the deal. It varies on the relationship you build with that seller, and there's just a lot of complexities within it. If you have any questions, or if this video created more questions for you, please put those questions in the comment, so that way I can do another video answering your question. So thanks, guys.